Hi, I'm Pete, and welcome to Just a Few Acres Farm. This is the Farmall 856 restoration, episode 8. I'm going to run out of fingers pretty soon. In this episode, we're going to take the midsection of the tractor, the transmission that I rebuilt in the last episode, put it back on the tractor, get it all hooked up, take care of the PTO gears in front, and start addressing the shift linkage by replacing the plates that go in the range and the speed transmission covers. First of all, I want to show you something that is really cool. This is the shifting fork for low, high, and neutral range in the range transmission here, and it was really worn where the pin from the gear selector rides in it. I'll put up a picture of what it used to look like. Well, Dad welded this up and put it on his milling machine and brought it back true, and it's like new. This is going to help take a lot of slop out of the shifting. It goes into the range transmission right here, around that collar, and it's bolted onto the shaft which moves back and forth in the case. This is going on with blue thread locker. I did buy another bottle of it and put thread lock on those bolts in the transmission. I remembered. You all reminded me. Thank you. I want a nice clean surface for the gaskets to seat on, so I'm cleaning this off again with lacquer thinner, get any oil residue off of it and any dirt. Yep, I went out and bought a load leveler. I think I'm going to thank myself for doing that. Clean off the back of this with lacquer thinner for the gasket. This is the O-ring for the suction tube that comes from the hydraulic filter back here and travels up to the MCV pump. It's a very important little O-ring, and I set it in grease so that it won't fall out while I'm putting things together. Here's a little trick that somebody in the comments section mentioned, and I thought it was a heck of a good idea. This roller bearing here has to mate up tight when you put things together, and this will hold the rollers in for easier fit going together. And then once the tractor starts running, this thing will disintegrate and wind up in the hydraulic filter. Should make my job easier. I went outside and sprayed this with a thin coat of high-tack spray gasket adhesive / sealant. It's too stinky to spray inside. My torque amplifier kit came with 2 of these gaskets. The second gasket had a passage through here and down to this transmission shaft. This appears to match what was original on this tractor. The only issue with it, let me get it back here, is that this shifter rail hole here doesn't line up. But it doesn't look like the old one did either, so it's no worries. The rail doesn't come through into that space anyway. I guess this needs some grease. Looks good. This direct drive gear here has just come through and it's about to meet the roller bearing. So here's where we pause. And the reason we pause is because the PTO shaft is popped through that hollow counter shaft. We got to put the PTO driven gear on it. I'll have to slide it back a little bit to make enough room to get the gear in. There we go. From the underside, you can see it better, I think. You're being quite stubborn. I'm not sure why. Oh, I see. You gotta come ahead a little bit. There you go. There we go. That's loose in front, that PTO gear, but I'm not on this bearing yet. Hung up with gear mesh or something. Let's try going up a little bit. Well, why don't you come together? You act like you're binding in there someplace. Let's try it with it way down. Ah. Actually, I don't have to leave that rubber band. I can cut that thing and get it out of there. Now that the rollers are trapped. Yep. We're almost where we need to be now. There we go. Two bolts snugged up. She spins good. Yeah, that's the click of my internal torque wrench. Yeah. With the transmission case all mounted up, I can start buttoning up the front in here. This is the end of the PTO shaft, and it's got a tapered roller bearing on it. This gets a square profile O-ring to seal it. And the cover is shimmed out to push in this bearing cup to the right distance to keep the correct end play and preload on the bearings. And then the cover goes over the shims. Whoops, I almost forgot. Next I have to put together the constant drive PTO shaft that mates up with the clutch. And remember, my old shaft had wear in the splines about a third of the way through the splines. So I have a new one here to put in the bearing assembly. Job one is a new lip seal to go in here, and it's got to face this way. Oil side is this way, and the clutched shaft to the torque amplifier runs through the middle of here. These ones are always tricky to put in. Fortunately, I found a socket that is just about the same size. Ah, there it is. It had to go way down in there. Seat the bearing on the shaft. Snap ring. Seal for the outer shaft. This is another reverse install. There we go. This is kind of a pain because you can't see if the seal is seating in properly when it hits the tapered part of the shaft in between this shaft and this shaft. Guess I'll just have to take it on faith and feel. Feels right. Grease the center seal. And we have an O-ring that goes around here. I have to get that seal to seat up the tapered part of the shaft. See right up here, it's got to climb up on here, the lip seal does. Wowie. She did not want to go. These bolt holes go straight through, they're not blind, so the original solution to seal them was copper crush washers. And I am also using some thread sealant on them. There we go, shaft within a shaft. Both turn nicely. The next thing to address is covers on the transmissions which have the shifting plates in them, the detent plates. Here's the range transmission cover, and remember my low-high neutral plate was broken. I have a new low-high neutral plate here which came with its own arm that attaches to the linkage above the transmission. I also got a new reverse detent plate here, but unlike the low-high neutral, it doesn't come with the linkage plate on top. But I got a problem here. This has been drilled out to 7/16. It was originally 3/8, which is the size of this bolt, so I got to fix that. I cut the shaft out of the 1/2-inch bolt and it fits right in that hole I drilled. The countersinks are for greater weld penetration. Mission accomplished. Now a 3/8-inch bolt or pin fits snug in the hole. Tightening up the shifting on this tractor is one of the original jobs I had, and so as I work through, I'm going to be tightening up all the linkages. Now I can reassemble this, and it can be a little bit confusing to get everything lined up right. That one goes from the underside. Let's see, we got a roller that goes on there, and a roller that goes underneath here. There's that one. And the spring goes in here. Well, get on there, spring. Don't make me get another tool. All right, you made me. Now on the lid, this new piece goes on, to which the linkage will be hooked eventually, and we have a tapered pin to put in. And just to make sure there's no doubt that it'll stay in, there's also a pinch bolt. And a spring pin that secures this reverse shaft. We gotta make sure everything's all lined up here. We want it in neutral in the range. And we want the reverse to be not in reverse, which is the case here, or things would bind up. Reverse selectors in not reverse, and range selectors in neutral in the middle. I am not going to put a gasket on this yet because I'm not going to bolt it down until I get the tractor back together, unsplit, front and rear joined, in case I got to get in here and turn some gears or something. This one is really stiff. There we go. With the transmission in gear, this is at neutral. I believe this is high range. Low range. Then back to neutral. And reverse is in neutral. And that's reverse. Now for the speed transmission, these rails can go back in. Let's see, which one goes to the front? No, they only go in one way, it turns out, because the fork will hit the gear if you put it in the wrong collar. My kit came with new bolts to fasten these down. Then these guys go on like this. These rollers go on them. Just check and make sure that the shift plate here works. Yeah, I can't keep it centered, but that's the way they run in these grooves. These new screws are Torx head rather than the old Phillips head ones, and I am thankful for that. I'll bend these over to lock them in place. A viewer commented that this was straking with an R, not staking. I looked it up. It's true. Here's the speed transmission cover, and I have another little fix-it job here, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do about this. This collar's loosened up on the shaft that goes down in and turns this big plate. I guess I can start by taking the pin out and seeing where the slop is. This had a tapered pin in it, and when I put it in here, it's a tight fit. I think in this case it's just wear on the pin here and it needs a new pin, because it doesn't seem to have play when it's not in where it was seated before. So that's an easy fix. I'll just get a new tapered pin for it. This plate that goes in the cover for the speed transmission has a detent plate on the back here, and I thought, well, since I'm in here, I'll replace it. So I bought a new one, but I don't see any sense in actually replacing it because there's practically no wear on the old one, and to put this new one in, it came with rivets, and I have to grind these out and then pound new ones flat in there. Seems like a lot of work for not really any benefit. I can save this one for the 756 when I get into it. This one's pretty simple to put back together. Detent plate, roller, gotta put the roller on there. Goes on there. And then we have a key for the shaft. You're goofy. I don't know why. There we go. Just a little tap tap. Well, get in there, key. A retaining ring, C-clip, circlip. I gotta get the roller down in there. There. Now on this side, I'm just going to temporarily put this back together till I get another pin. Well, hold the phone. I have another tapered pin. Let's see if this tightens it up. Well, why is that loose? Let's take a look. Feels like the keyway is loose. It is loose. The key rocks in the keyway side to side. And as I was putting this in, I noticed there's more than just the key. That's quite loose in the bore. I don't know if I like that. I can get a new one of these shafts. Maybe I should do that. Oh, I know what I can do. I said I was going to finish these in this video. There we go. Certainly looks finished, right? I'm going to have to get a key and probably a new shaft before I finish putting this together. Another day. The great thing about the tractor restoration hobby is there's so many different flavors. Depending on the people that are doing the work, restoration can be just simply putting a coat of paint on it and making it look new, or it can be getting a tractor running, just running in its original so-called work clothes. Maybe it's been sitting for 20 years, and that's a major accomplishment in itself. One of the things I really enjoy focusing on when I do restorations is that the tractor feels as close to new as possible for me. That means the shifting should be tight and work well. The steering should be tight. The brake should work well. The gauges should be what they were when they were originally made, if I can obtain replacement gauges. All that stuff that I interface with as the operator of the tractor should feel tight and trustworthy to me. That's just one of those things. Maybe for other people it isn't that important, but I like focusing on that when I go through tractors. I think in the next video I'm going to be putting the two halves of this tractor back together. I've got the rear main seal for the engine. I've got all the clutch parts. We can put all those in, bring the tractor back together, and that'll be a major milestone. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.